I know what you want. You only marry for money. Stop talking nonsense. It's obvious, isn't it? You, a poor single mom like you, that's why you're sticking around even after your husband passed away. You're such a bother. Every day, Emma, who's 35 years old like me, throws these mean comments at me. My dad died when I was young, and I grew up with just my mom. She kept working even after she got married again, so we weren't super poor. But we weren't rich either. But my mom was always happy, and she worked hard for me, so I never really felt alone. I planned to work after high school, but my mom had been saving up for my college. I really wanted to go to college, but I didn't want to burden my mom who had worked so hard for me, so I gave up on the idea. When my mom suggested I go to college, I was thrilled. My mom got married at 23 and had me at 25. When I was in high school, my 43-year-old mom, who was still energetic, said, "I'm still young and healthy, Mia. Follow your dreams. It would hurt me more if you gave up because of money." Her words touched me deeply, and I got a part-time job to help with tuition. Because of that, I graduated college without any student loans. After finishing college, I joined a big trading company. I worked really hard every day because I wanted to make life easier for my mom. Within 5 years, I got promoted to administrative assistant and got a raise. I took my mom on trips and bought her the massage chair she wanted. 2 years later, I was chosen to be an executive assistant because of my good work. I started dating Ethan, the president's son, and we eventually got married. When I told my mom, she was so happy she cried tears of joy. But our happiness didn't last long. Just 2 years into our marriage, my husband suddenly passed away. He collapsed at work, clutching his chest, and despite rushing him to the hospital, he couldn't be saved. I had said goodbye to him that morning, never imagining it would be the last time. I was in such shock that I couldn't even speak. Losing a husband was unimaginable, and I couldn't help but think of Benjamin, the president who had lost his only son. He looked so alone and devastated, just like me. Even after getting married, I kept working as the executive assistant, spending a lot of time with the president, who was clearly heartbroken. But amidst the grief, one person didn't seem affected at all. Emma. Living together after my marriage, I quickly noticed her indifferent attitude. Emma wasn't actually related to my husband by blood. His real mom passed away when he was young, and his dad remarried when he started school. One day, Emma made a tasteless joke about inheriting everything if something happened to my husband. I was taken aback and reminded her of the inappropriate timing. Emma denied any ulterior motives, but her words left a bitter taste. It was evident she had her eyes on my husband's wealth, despite her protestations of love and loss. Emma seemed to believe I'd leave immediately after my husband's passing, but I stayed. Benjamin appeared strong at work, but I could see he was overexerting himself. I couldn't fathom handing over our home to someone like Emma. Plus, even though it had only been 2 years, our house held cherished memories of my husband. I wanted to linger in those memories for a while longer. Emotions aren't easily let go. The time I spent with him was precious. He once mentioned that Emma felt more like a roommate than a mother to him. She was frequently out, sometimes not returning until late when Benjamin was away on business. But my husband didn't want to burden Benjamin, who was already busy with work, so he kept his concerns to himself. Surprisingly, Emma acted very differently when Benjamin was around. It was like there were two sides to her personality. When Benjamin left for work, Emma would bid him farewell with a smile. "Take care of Ethan for me," Benjamin would say. Emma would respond warmly, assuring him that Ethan was precious to her too, and that she trusted Benjamin to take care of him. Once Benjamin was gone, Emma's demeanor changed. Her smile faded, and she would make plans to go out with friends or to the movies. When I questioned her plans, she would brush it off, reminding me not to trouble Benjamin unnecessarily, as he was working hard for us. "If you say anything, he'll worry and won't be able to focus on work. Just study quietly at home every day, all right?" Got it. That became our routine, but Benjamin didn't seem too bothered once he got used to it. In fact, he preferred not being the center of attention. As a child, he saw Emma as more of his dad's wife than his own mother. Benjamin always appreciated Emma's presence when he was young, allowing his dad to focus on work. The company Benjamin now managed was a legacy from his step-grandfather, and he showed a natural talent for running it. Under his leadership, the company flourished, managing 5 businesses with annual revenues in the hundreds of millions. With such responsibilities, Benjamin was always incredibly busy. My husband used to tell me that Benjamin hardly had time to relax at home as a child. Seeing him exhausted from work every day, my husband didn't want to add unnecessary stress. He never mentioned Emma because he felt content and didn't want to bother Benjamin. He was always so relaxed about things. He never seemed like the typical heir to a big company. Did that ever bother you? Nah, not really. As long as she was home, I was fine. It gave Dad peace of mind knowing she was there so he could focus on work. And we never went hungry. There were always snacks. I see. My husband shrugged it off with a laugh, never making a big deal out of it. I admired that about him. They weren't mean to me. They just didn't dote on me. Sure, Emma would throw some snide comments my way from time to time, but I brushed it off as typical mother-in-law banter. She was often out, attending events or hanging out with friends, so we didn't interact much. I wasn't bothered by her sarcasm. If my husband didn't mind, why should I? However, Emma's extravagant spending did bother me a bit given my thrifty nature. But since neither Benjamin nor my husband raised any concerns, I kept my thoughts to myself. After my husband passed away, seeing Emma enjoying shopping and luxury with a carefree attitude made me uneasy. Emma, please try to support Benjamin. Even though he acts fine, he's really lonely. I pleaded. Why should I listen to you? What's your motive? Are you trying to get into our family for inheritance? I've never even thought about that. Well, Ethan's gone, so why don't you leave too? I'm not leaving. Benjamin said I can stay as long as I need to. Emma gave me an irritated look but didn't say more. She probably felt relieved that she wouldn't have to worry about me inheriting Benjamin's wealth. 3 years after my husband's passing, Emma's irritation towards me grew. Her sarcastic remarks became more frequent and cutting. Whether at home or in the office, I was always by Benjamin's side. Emma seemed to believe I was trying to manipulate him into giving me his fortune. It was painful to be seen that way, and I started to question if staying in a house without my husband was right. I could see Benjamin's struggles at work every day. Maybe it would be better for me to go back to my single mom's house instead of enduring Emma's sarcasm. My mom was turning 60 this year, and it had been 3 years since my dad passed away. I began to contemplate my future. When Benjamin collapsed, he was lucky to survive, but it seemed likely he would need ongoing care even after leaving the hospital. At the company, things didn't immediately fall apart because Benjamin had trained his successors well. However, Emma's attitude changed noticeably. He got what he deserved. He's been so tight-fisted lately. What do you mean tight-fisted? Our credit card limit has been reduced, and our expenses have been cut. Is the company struggling? I don't think so, Emma. It turns out you missed your husband's 3rd anniversary ceremony last year because you were hungover from the previous night's wild outing, as revealed by the credit card bill. It appeared that Benjamin, who rarely intervened in Emma's spending, had finally taken notice. Missing their son's 3rd memorial was a breaking point for him. In his anger, Benjamin decided to restrict Emma's access to money. However, she still received enough for a comfortable life, so there was little reason for complaint. Benjamin himself mentioned concerns about the company's finances. Losing Ethan hit him hard, and things took a turn for the worse. Benjamin said that? Don't act ignorant. You're aware too. How does losing one son justify jeopardizing the company? I genuinely didn't know. And yet he's telling people, despite his condition, I'll rest at home and live a long life. He's been saying the doctors predict he could live to be 100. Well, that's positive news. It's not as positive as you think. If he needs care for that long, it won't be easy. Emma's nostrils flared as she launched into a rant about Benjamin. Hearing her describe him as dull and annoying left a bitter taste in my mouth. After all, who had been funding her luxurious lifestyle? Even if Benjamin's company was struggling, couldn't she at least offer him support? But then Emma said something even more shocking. I decided to divorce him. What? Just think about it. The company might be in trouble. What if we end up in debt? It's only sensible to settle the property and leave before we run out of money. Are you really planning to abandon Benjamin when he needs help? I can't handle taking care of a sick old man with no money left. I'm going to take what I can before his will disappears and then leave. Is that your plan? Emma's words, spoken as if she had come up with a brilliant idea, filled me with disgust. However, just a week after that conversation, Benjamin's health took a sudden turn for the worse, and he passed away unexpectedly. He's gone too, just 3 years after my husband passed. Everything felt like it was closing in. Benjamin's voice echoed my husband's. Sometimes talking to him felt like talking to my late husband. Not being able to hear his voice anymore, it's unbearable. Oh dear, he's passed away. What about his assets? His company hasn't collapsed yet. Maybe he died before taking on debt for my sake. This means all remaining assets are mine. You sound pleased despite Benjamin's recent passing. Caught on to that, did you? Too bad for you, though. You won't be inheriting anything. I would have preferred Benjamin to be alive over any inheritance. Don't act noble now. You're just putting on a show to impress everyone, aren't you? Even if you asked, there wouldn't be a cent for you. Despite Benjamin's death, all Emma cared about was money. How could she be so heartless? It saddened me even more to think about Benjamin's plight. So, you won't be attending the funeral. What? Are strangers not allowed? Understood. 2 days later, Benjamin's funeral took place quietly, in accordance with his wishes for a simple service without the grandeur of a company event. Afterward, I noticed several missed calls from Emma, but I chose not to return them. Despite her persistent attempts to reach me, I remained silent. Then, unexpectedly, Emma appeared at my workplace one day. I finally found you? Why haven't you been answering my calls? She demanded. Emma, what do you need? I replied cautiously. Why are you avoiding me? I was told to leave the funeral home. You should have been the one excluded. I called you numerous times that day. What's going on? She pressed. Well, you're no longer considered part of my family, I explained. What? Emma exclaimed. You mentioned that strangers weren't allowed at the funeral, so we decided to have a family-only service, and since you're now a stranger to us, I politely requested that you not attend. You're the one who's the stranger here, Emma retorted. No, actually, it's you who's the stranger, I clarified. What do you mean? Emma questioned. When Benjamin became ill and was expected to be bedridden, Emma served him with divorce papers. She assumed that because Benjamin was hospitalized, he had left this world without finalizing the divorce. However, I had already submitted those divorce papers as Benjamin had requested. Therefore, legally and in reality, Emma is now a stranger to us. In the past, Benjamin confided in me about the company's precarious situation. He feared potential debt and realized they couldn't sustain their current lifestyle. He suggested downsizing to a more modest life for just the two of them. He hoped Emma would support him through this, allowing them to stay together. However, Emma's response was cold and indifferent. Perhaps it's best to separate before debt becomes a burden, she said. 1 month after this conversation, Benjamin collapsed. Despite waking up, he knew his health was deteriorating. He confided in Emma, explaining that he might have to relinquish control of the company and rely on her for care. As expected, Emma suggested a divorce, likely aiming to secure assets before any debt accumulated. However, Benjamin had already made plans. He had donated most of his personal assets and appointed new leaders for his companies, leaving little for Emma. When he informed her of this, Emma was shocked. So, I won't receive anything? Well, technically, there's not much left. I did leave a few $100s in savings, Benjamin admitted. A few $100s. That's hardly anything. Even though Benjamin had informed me of his plans beforehand, hearing it directly from him made me realize the extent of his thoroughness. It was evident that he was determined not to split any property with Emma. Perhaps it was Emma's behavior after her husband's passing that spurred Benjamin to take such decisive action. But what about the house? If I sell it, Yes, well, please vacate the premises as soon as possible. I'm staying with Mom for now, but I intend to move back eventually. What are you saying? You're essentially a stranger. You have even fewer rights than I do. As I mentioned before, you're the stranger here, Emma, considering you're already divorced. Besides, the house was originally inherited by Benjamin from his grandfather, so it doesn't count for property division in a divorce. So why do you believe you have the right to reside there? Because when I married Benjamin, we legally adopted each other. What? So you're implying I have a claim to inherit Benjamin's property? It's hard to believe, isn't it? The idea of adoption had originated from Benjamin himself. At the time of our marriage, I hadn't given it much thought. In his eyes, I was becoming his daughter by marrying his son, so I agreed to the arrangement. However, I never disclosed this information after my husband's passing, fearing that Emma would misconstrue it as me being motivated by the family fortune. I have work to attend to. Could you please leave? I've instructed Emma that any communication should go through our lawyers. I've sought guidance from our company's legal advisors. I called security to escort Emma off the premises, making it clear she was not welcome back. Despite her resistance, she left quietly when I threatened to involve the police. She tried to contact me numerous times afterward, but I chose to ignore her completely. Her persistent attempts to claim our fortune only led to a flood of complaints to our lawyer. Our company was thriving, much to Emma's bewilderment. She argued that if it were bankrupt, there would be wealth to divide. However, the company had already been passed on to a successor before Benjamin's passing, rendering it no longer his possession. As a result, there was nothing left for Emma to stake a claim on. Regarding the family's real estate holdings, everything had been settled in the divorce prior to Benjamin's passing. Our lawyer patiently clarified to Emma that she had no claim to any of it. It was evident that Emma had been persistent in her pursuit, much to the lawyer's exasperation. Emma, under the mistaken belief that she was entitled to a portion of the will, had incurred substantial debt on her credit card. Now, she found herself burdened with the task of paying it off, working multiple part-time jobs from dawn till dusk. However, her financial struggles were not my concern. Emma was a decade younger than Benjamin, having married him at 25 and now being 55. With almost 30 years of marriage behind them, Emma was entitled to survivor benefits from the Social Security taxes Benjamin had paid even after their divorce. However, she would only become eligible for these benefits upon reaching 60, which was still 5 years away. Additionally, she needed to have filed for a division of the pension within 2 years of their divorce. I wasn't certain if Emma was aware of these requirements, nor did I feel any obligation to inform her. I harbored no sympathy or responsibility for Emma's welfare. Currently, I reside in the home I once shared with my mother, Benjamin, and my late husband. My days unfold calmly and serenely. There are moments when memories of my husband and Benjamin bring a smile to my face, mingled with tears. Yet, recalling their warm smiles inspires me to embrace each day with joy.